Hello there. It is Monday, September 8th. I don't know what time it is, like 3 p.m. or something like that. But, anyways, today I am here to keep yip yapping about mindfulness, specifically how I have been dealing with shame lately. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I struggle with shame. I really am not a professional at anything. This is not advice that I am necessarily giving, it's just kind of some insight as to how I emotionally manage myself and try to navigate life to be the best person that I can be. And so, in to be able to do that, I have to check myself a lot of the times, check the narratives that I create and the narratives that my mind creates on its own at times. Remember that you are not always the voice of your mind, and we don't always have control over necessarily how we feel about certain things and what we think, but we always have control about how we react to those thoughts and to those feelings. And that's definitely been a conscious thing that I've been doing in the past year. The past year, I started therapy again, and it's just been heavy on my mind because I've been getting more and more memories of last year, not like in my mind, but on my phone. Like, oh, a year ago today, you were crying your eyes out. A year ago today, you lost the light inside of your eyes and all hope is gone. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see, and I'm glad that I documented, honestly, this last year a lot of me crying, a lot of me smiling, and a lot of me hanging out with friends and ranting, and all of those things that I get to look back on and say, I'm really proud of myself, and I'm really surprised that I didn't crash out. So, to do that, I also want to celebrate not just me a year ago, where I made the conscious choice to say, I'm going to be better. I'm going to heal. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to love myself. And that's great. But I've caught myself as I think back to younger me, to other versions of me. I used to always reference my past self as, oh, she was miserable. I'm not that girl anymore. She was a bitch. She was sad. She was miserable. And, I would be lying if I said, like, oh, I'm not at a more consistently uh, peaceful part of my life, that there is a more conscious joy that I get to enjoy now. It's more consistent, it's more stable. However, I also want to stop invalidating little me. And I feel as though when I say, "Oh, she was miserable, she was a bitch," and I'm not her. However, I'm still in that same body that held and either processed or didn't process the pain that I experienced in my past. And also, I don't want to invalidate the unconscious steps that I took to heal and to create a foundation in which I could reference when it was time to apply it. And so I feel like this video, I want to celebrate those parts of me. I want to celebrate little me, that even though she was having a really hard time, and even though she did make some mistakes along the way, there were always moments in which I showed up better each and every time that I had to face pain. I remember specifically a time when I was 18. I've always kind of struggled with a few different sort of mental health issues as a teenager. And when I was 18, the time came in which I had to go to college and grow up and make that decision. And I always told myself, I'm going to stay in my hometown. I'm going to do 2 years there. I'm going to do university online, and then I'm going to live here forever. And I'm never going to move. Well, when it was time to actually make that decision, and after having some hard conversations with mentors and adults that I trusted, I ultimately made the decision to leave. And that was a really hard decision. It was heartbreaking. I remember 2 days before I had to move, asking my cousin, I know all my things are packed up in the car, but like, is it too late? Is it too late to back out? And everybody could just tell or heard that I was terrified. I was terrified of having to leave my family and of having to leave this future that I created for myself. This is making me really upset. Anyways, so I still nonetheless made the decision to leave. I knew that it was the best thing that I could do. And I made that decision scared. I made it without hope. Honestly, there was a part of me that believed I was going to fail and I was going to have to move back home. And I said, let me try anyways. And here we are, have not moved back home since. But I'm just, I'm very proud of her for making the decision to change the trajectory of what I thought life was going to be. And same thing with me at 19 and 20. When I think about those really early ages of my early 20s, which I still am in my early 20s. Okay, let's be for real. I'm 23. Let's be for real. But I'm taking this out, sorry. um I was kind of put in a position at 19, 20 that I had no control over. I had to move cities and live with, oh Lord, that always happens. I always do that. I always forget to make space. I'm embarrassed. Whatever. Shame out the window. So yes, resume. Action. 22. 20, no, 2021. I had to move cities abruptly, not planned, and I had to live with people on the internet, and I was really scared, and I was really broke because I didn't anticipate having to commute every single day to school and didn't have a job in this new city. And so I my financial instability really took a toll on my emotional and mental well-being. And I found myself in a place similar to where I was as a teenager. And there was an immense amount of feelings of um, fear and shame of not being able to afford to live and to take care of myself, and fear that I would not be okay. And so I took actions that I'm not proud of and lived a lifestyle that that I know is not healthy for me. But also within that pain and within that fear, I found myself at times looking for a way out. And that was what was different in comparison to when I was a teenager, in which I would sulk and live in that headspace. In little moments of just fatigue, and I remember thinking, like, I don't want to feel this way, and I'm scared of feeling this way because I know what it could lead to. This is one of the moments that I think changed my life, because I found myself so confused and lost and tired to the fact that I would just resort to anything. And I couldn't afford therapy at this time. I didn't have insurance, and I definitely did not have the money to afford it. So what I would do is I would go to the podcast app, and I remember doing this for the first time ever and looking up how to be happy. I had zero idea on how to do that. I didn't know what steps somebody had to take, and I all I knew was that I was miserable and that I felt miserable in that moment. But I didn't recognize the hope that I had for change. That in itself, me looking up how to be happy, was me taking an unconscious step to want to change and to be better, even if I couldn't validate that at that time. And I remember there was a couple different results. One of those results was how to be a good person. And that's when it really started clicking in my head. I was like, wait, who the heck am I? What does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be bad? And how do I do that? How do I apply all of that in my day-to-day life? And so I I started listening to podcasts profusely, and I have not stopped. And it's literally my daily thing that I do. It's what makes me feel like me. It's something that I know that I enjoy, and it's something that has changed my life. I have taken in so much information, and not all of it has stuck, of course, and I don't agree with everything that I listen to, but being open to change, being open to learning, being open to improving myself, even that small step has played a very big role into who I am becoming and who I try to be every day. And so looking back at it, I was really clever. I was really creative, even though I didn't see it at that time. At that time, it was me giving up and resorting to something in the moment small, like a podcast. And now making my own video diaries and making my own audio recordings. Something that I do to help myself is I make voice recordings. Anytime I have big feelings, I make a voice recording. I have 100+ voice recordings in my phone right now, and it's just me yapping to myself. And I listen back to them from time to time, but I try not to live in my mind, trying to be present. But I know that if I ever feel very big feelings, I have these voice messages that I can go back to and reference and see how I've grown and see how I've dealt with them. Sometimes it's just a good reminder to have, to know that, hey, I feel this right now, but everything will be okay because I'm here. I'm here today. And that is the most perfect example of how I know that everything's going to always be okay and that there are always better days to come. It's my body truly telling me, you have grown, you have put in the work, and I am feeling it. And it's really relieving. And that's not to say that I never feel anxiety or anger or big feelings, but I can deal with them and I have a reference point. And all of that, 18, 19, 20, all of that hardship really came in handy for when I turned 22. And if you've been watching my videos, you know what happened when I was 22, right? I got out of a relationship which I projected a lot onto, and I just made my entire life. I had a very hard time understanding the importance of the self, of the individual when in a relationship. So when I came out of that relationship and then the pregnancy came and then the miscarriage came, I realized I don't know who I am. But when the pregnancy came, I also realized I'm going to lose that opportunity to invest into who I could be and who I am because I'm going to have a child now. And for me, as a Catholic, as a Christian, that was a blessing. I'm not going to, no voy a renegar, but at the same time, it made me realize, ooh, I really wasted some time in opportunities into loving my life and into being present, into enjoying this and that, and I'm going to lose all of it now. In exchange, it was still going to be a blessing, but it did have me thinking really hard. So when the miscarriage came, that was really freaking sad. That was really hard. Oh my gosh. Anyways, yes, the miscarriage was heavy on my mind, my body, and my soul. But through the pregnancy and then through the miscarriage, it also made me realize, I think there's more to life than a man, right? It made me realize how much everything mattered, how much everything that I was going to lose, I make sure that when I wake up, I get to appreciate a lot more because it was much more real. I was conscious of how fast and how quickly I can lose my life. Maybe not in the sense of like death, but this specific lifestyle, this life that I have, this dynamic that I have. And sure, I'm not going to say, oh, I would have had a miserable life. Maybe I wouldn't have had a miserable life. Maybe I would have had my little baby. I would have had the support of my family and it would have been just fine. But I did gain a new appreciation for the life that I have right now, that I have been honestly not loving, almost dreading, because it felt so lonely. But it felt so lonely because I was scared to be with myself. And I was so focused on feeling and feeding off of how other people made me feel because I knew that I didn't have the skills at the time to make myself feel better. And so that's what I've been doing. I have not just that instant to thank for this new kind of level of consciousness, but I get to thank 18-year-old me and 19-year-old me and 20-year-old me and 21 and 22 for unconsciously also taking the steps to get me where I am. Anyways, I guess all that to say, some important lessons that I learned was definitely watch the narratives and the language that we use with ourselves, the way that I choose to speak about who I was at 18, 19, 20, right? My past self, and the way in which I choose to validate or invalidate my experiences, as well as expectations, setting expectations. A lot of the time, my shame comes from me reflecting on my feelings today in attachment to something that happened in the past. So I'll get fatigued. I'm like, oh, we should be over this by now. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way by now, and this and that. But because I set those random expectations, I'm like, oh, by this time, I'm not going to feel this way. I'm not going to care. I'm not going to react. That is me telling my body, you are not allowed to be a human being. You are not allowed to feel. And we all know suppression is just going to lead to you exploding. So I am working on that right now. I am working on giving my body the space and time it needs to process trauma, to process pain, to process whatever it needs to. Because at the end of the day, I can't control that, but I can always, always control how I show up for myself. Alrighty, well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I always, always appreciate your time. Thanks for being here. I had a good time making it. Hope you had a good time watching it. And I'll see you in the next video.